Hi, this is JJ at CCBC. In this video, we'll look at layers in Photoshop. Specific topics we'll cover are naming your layers as well as managing layers. The software I'm using is Adobe's Photoshop Creative Suite version 6 on a Mac. So let's get into this. So here I have Photoshop open, and I've opened a couple images that we'll use as examples. The first is an image of the Earth. You'll notice it's a JPEG. Right? And when you open a JPEG, it'll come as a background layer that's locked. In order to make edits to this, I need to unlock the layer. That's really simple to do. If you look down here at the bottom of the layer palette, there's a little trash can icon. I can click and drag all the way down and delete that padlock. So that unlocks the layer, and now I can make edits. Right? That'll be the same for PNGs as well as several other file types, including GIFs. So if I switch over to a GIF image, so here's the same image, I just saved it as in GIF format. You'll notice it too has a padlock, but it's not called a background layer, it's called an index layer. And the reason for that is a GIF uses an indexed color palette. And all that really means is it indexes specific colors to make a smaller color palette, just the colors it needs to render the image, and thereby reduces the file size of your GIF. So this is a good thing. Unfortunately, we can't unlock this. So if I click and drag my padlock to the trash can, you'll notice nothing happens. So in order to fix that, I need to change the color mode of this image. So if I go up to my image menu and I go to mode, you'll notice there's that indexed color. All I need to do is switch to RGB color if I'm using this image for delivery over a computer, or CMYK if I'm going to print this image. So I'm going to use RGB. You'll notice my layer name now changes to background, just like what we had for a JPEG, and now I can unlock that layer by dragging the padlock down to the trash can. Right? And that's it for unlocking layers within an image. Next, we'll look at how to sort and name images within what's called the layer stack. So those first two images, we only had one layer. It was just a flat image. Here we have several layers to work with. I've named the top layer and the bottom layer, and the way the layers are viewed is top to bottom. So whatever is on top will be in the foreground, whatever's on the bottom will be in the background. You can tell because the thumbnail for the bottom is a white background, the thumbnail for the top is mostly transparent, so it's actually in front. Here I have several other layers. All I did was number them for the layering so that I knew what order I wanted them to be in. Ultimately, we want this to look like a rainbow, so we're going to have to sort this stack. So I'm going to drag the number 1 layer up to the top here, and then 2, and 3 is already in position, so 4, and 5 and 6 need to be swapped, and there we go. We have a nice rainbow to work with. All right, so that's how to sort layers within the stack. You can also make layers visible or hide layers. Now by default they're all visible, so you'll notice there's an eyeball icon in front of each of the layer thumbnails. If I click that eyeball, it hides that layer and whatever's on that layer. So let's say I wanted to work with just my purple rainbow arc and make some edits here. It's a lot easier to do that if I hide all the layers that are in front of it. Once I've made my edits, I can click on the same eyeball icon, which is actually hidden right now, and that makes each of the layers visible so that I can see what the image looks like. All right, so that's how to control the visibility of your layers. Next we need to name these layers. Now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is fine for an order, but I don't actually know what's on the layers. I can look at the thumbnails and it gives me a good sense of what's on it, but sometimes you'll have really tiny images, like let's say you have a picture of the universe and just one star is on one layer. You might not be able to see that star. The thumbnail will be so small. So it's good to name your layers. So to name them, all you have to do is mouse over the name, double click, and then type in a new name. So I'll just name the colors of my rainbow. Really quick. And again, this is good for your own use as well as if you're working in a group project and someone else needs to work with your images. By having your layers named and identified, it makes it much easier to work with your files. One thing that new students will do is they'll click, instead of clicking on the actual name of the layer, they'll click over here on the layer itself. What that does is it opens up the layer style menu, or window I should say, and that has a lot of really cool layer effects that you can apply that'll affect whatever is in that layer within the image. This whole window deserves its own video. It's beyond the scope of this one, so feel free to explore it on your own time. I'll try and make a video on this one later, so I'm just going to cancel out of that. So that's how to manage all the layers within your stack. The last thing I wanted to show you was how to work with transparency in your layers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this word sample. You've probably seen a lot of images that are watermarked as sample images. So that's what we're going to do here. I've got a picture of a Ferrari here. That's my background. And then on top of it I put a text layer that just says sample in dark black text. So what I'm going to do is change its opacity. Now opacity is actually the opposite of transparency. Something that's 100% opaque is solid. So you can see the text here is solid because it's 100% opacity. If I go in here and type a new number, like let's switch it to 50%, it's 50% opaque. In other words, it's 50% transparent. They're opposites. So you can actually see the Ferrari through the text that is now 50% opaque. That's it for naming and managing layers in Photoshop. I hope you learned something. See you in the next video.